Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 3rd of June of 2026. Today we have a lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, where during the previous 24 hours, according to the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, the Ukrainians launched more than 700 drones deep inside of the territory of Russia. And during the previous 24 hours, several maps were published by pro-Ukrainian sources. For example, this is the first map, and this map was published in the evening of the 2nd of June of 2026, and this is the situation approximately at 8 p.m. of the Ukrainian time, so which means that this is the situation at 9 p.m. of Moscow times. And according to this map, as you can see, hundreds of drones mainly were flying in the northern direction, and according to information we have, these drones managed to get the city of St. Petersburg, and as a result of this attack, a lot of objects of energy infrastructure and military infrastructure as well were damaged and probably even destroyed by the armed forces of Ukraine. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of videos from the city of St. Petersburg, and for example, in this video we can see the St. Petersburg oil base that was significantly damaged by the Ukrainians with drones. Lots of explosions and lots of drones, as you can see, were recorded just during this attack. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Ukrainians managed to deal significant damage to the navy base of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. But before we start discussing this, another satellite picture was published this morning, and this is a fresh satellite picture. And here we can see that as a result of the Ukraine's massive attack, the Ukrainians managed to destroy up to 4 or 5 oil tanks that were located on the territory of the Petersburg oil terminal. Another important thing, as we discussed, the Ukrainians attacked and damaged not just this oil terminal, but also the Ukrainians were tasked to deal significant damage to the navy fleet of the navy of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. And according to information we have, the Ukrainians managed to deal significant damage to the corvette Boyki. So this is a very important ship of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, because the Russians used to use this corvette Boyki with the purpose to supply and to support ships of the Shadow fleets that go from the area through Baltic Sea and Northern Sea. So the Russians used this corvette Boyki with the purpose to support the Russian Shadow fleet before the Shadow fleet enters the open sea. So that is why the Russians most likely will not be able to use this corvette for a very long period of time. And this video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see how exactly the Ukrainians were attacking this corvette Boyki. So as you can see, this corvette Boyki was in the dock, which means that the Russians were maintaining, probably repairing this ship after this ship was moving and was in the open sea. The Russians returned this corvette back to the base and were repairing, and while repairing, the Ukrainians attacked this, which means that most likely the Russians haven't lost this ship, but obviously it will require additional time before the Russians are able to repair this ship completely. Another important thing about this attack that was carried out by the Ukrainians is the distance and the destination and positions where the Ukrainians' drones were recorded. According to information we have, some drones attacked the city of St. Petersburg from the south, but many drones were moving in the direction of the city from the west, so basically from the airspace of the NATO countries or from the airspace of the international waters. For example, in this video we can see the Ukraine's drone that was moving in the direction of St. Petersburg from the Gulf of Finland, and this is international territories. Another important thing is that during the previous 24 hours, lots of updates we received from the state of Estonia, which is a part of a NATO organization. According to information we have, air raid alert issued for 6 countries in Estonia overnight during Ukraine's massive attack on northwestern parts of Russian St. Petersburg. So there are very high chances that the drones of the armed forces of Ukraine were using the airspace of NATO countries with the purpose to attack the city of St. Petersburg. Another important thing worth attention is that according to information we have today, the Russians have a very big economical forum on the territory of St. Petersburg, and basically the Ukrainians were attacking the city of St. Petersburg during this forum opened, and this is a very important forum for the Russian Federation. And obviously, this is not just another massive attack carried out by the Ukrainians. This is something like an attempt from the Ukrainian side to humiliate the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. Of course, when talking about all these videos, all these attacks, the first things that comes to our mind is the question when the Russians are going to strike back. And of course, many people expect that the Russians would strike back maybe even this evening between the 3rd and the 4th of June of 2026, but most likely this won't happen because according to information we have, the Mark Rutte air defense system arrived in Kiev, and during the day he was in Kiev with Zelensky. They were talking lots about the special military operation. They were talking lots about the future of the conflict. And telling the truth, both Zelensky and Mark Rutte made lots of very bad statements. So basically, they were insulting the president of the Russian Federation, more precisely, and the entire military campaign. Lots of statements of these like this were made, but the thing is that the Russians most likely will not attack the city of Kiev, while the Mark Rutte air defense system is located here, and while the Russians have this International Economical Forum, which most likely ends on the 5th of June of 2026, with the statements, big speech of the President of Russia. According to information we have, the President of Russia is going to make a lot of statements on the 5th of June of 2026, and probably on the 6th of June of 2026, the Russians will begin their retaliatory strikes. So, of course, let's wait and see how the things are going to develop next, but obviously this is the biggest escalation of 2026 and probably since the beginning of the special military operation. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation through the southern regions. According to information we have, the Ukrainians were attacking these territories as well. The Ukrainians used less drones, but despite the fact that Ukrainians used less drones, they managed to deal significant damage. The sources reported about explosions on the territory of the city of Melitopol. The pro-Ukrainian sources reported that some factory or some industrial zone was damaged or even destroyed as a result of attacks. Some plants for civilian purposes. Furthermore, we had a report that the Ukrainians attacked the city of Jankoy. As for the city of Jankoy, the Ukrainians attacked the railway station on the territory of the city, and as you can see, as a result of attack, a civilian train was significantly damaged without probably any chances to fix it or to repair it. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Ukrainians attacked the settlement of Yanakiev, and as a result of attack, a civilian bus was damaged with FPV drone of the armed forces of Ukraine. So the situation is a very difficult one. We see that the Ukrainians are trying to escalate the conflict while the Russians are trying to carry out economical forum just with the purpose to provoke Russians for retaliatory strike probably in coming hours or in coming days. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation on the ground. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of very interesting updates. And first, let's talk about the Kostiantynivka direction. Additional changes on the ground were recorded, and these are the changes on the ground. This is the end of the 1st of June of 2026. This is the end of the 2nd of June of 2026. The Russians improved their position through the Mykolaievsky micro-district, and by the end of the 3rd of June of 2026, the Russians improved their position significantly in the central part. So basically, the central part of the city of Kostiantynivka is about to fall or in Russia's hands or is about to be encircled by the Russians completely. And if it happens, the Russians will establish complete control for more than 60% of the city of Kostiantynivka, and they will continue advancing further. Meanwhile, the Russians intensify their artillery strikes and aviation strikes through the northern parts of the city of Kostiantynivka because the Russians see and they understand that the battle for the city of Kostiantynivka will be finished, maybe finished very, very soon. And if it happens, the Russians just try to be on the safe side and just try to be ready to begin as fast as possible the battle for the settlement of Alexeyevka-Druzhkovka and for the settlement of Druzhkovka itself. According to information we have, the Russians are tasked to finish the battle for the Slaviansk-Konstantinovka direction before autumn comes, so the Russians have less than 90 days. But we need to understand that when talking about these 90 days that the Russians have, we are not talking about complete physical control over the territories. We're talking about the situation when it will be, when everybody will understand, when everybody understands that the Ukrainians have no chances to hold control, on to safe control over the territories. So I'm just trying to tell you that the Russians are tasked before the end of, let's say, the summer of 2026 to establish complete control, let's say, over these territories. If the Russians are able to take under complete control everything along these red lines, this is going to be basically the end of the battle for the Slaviansk-Konstantinovka direction, because from these positions and from this configuration to front line, the Ukrainians will have less chances to hold these two cities, because all roads, all logistic lines would be under complete Russian FPV drone control, fire control, and so on. And of course, we understand that the territories that I have just shown you on the map is something that is real and something that the Russians indeed are able to take under complete control before autumn comes. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation to the east of the city of Kramatorsk. According to information we have, additional changes on the ground were recorded in this area. The Russians continue advancing through the village of Malinovka. According to these changes, we see that the settlement of Malinovka may fall in Russia's hands within the next days. Furthermore, the Ukrainians published several videos of how they were attacking Russians along Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal, and all these updates are telling us just about one thing, that there are very heavy classes to the east of the city of Kramatorsk, and the Russians are getting closer and closer to the heart of the Donbas occupation. Furthermore, the Russians improved their positions through the settlement of Alexandrovka, and these are the changes on the ground between the dates. So this is the end of the 31st of May of 2026. This is the end of the 1st of June. This is the end of the 2nd of June, and this is the end of the 3rd of June of 2026. And according to these changes, the Russians control more than 30% and continue advancing, which means that also in coming days, the settlement of Alexandrovka may fall in Russia's hands, and then the Russians will begin battle for the settlement of Nikolaevka, Yurkovka. So within the next days, we'll start receiving more and more updates about the situation on the Ukraine side of the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal, because the Russians most likely are tasked to move fast using broad frontline attack, just with one purpose, to take under complete control the heart of the Donbas occupation, and the Russians are tasked to do this within this year.
Hvis du overvejer at købe en konturpude, skal du høre dette først. Jeg var lige ved at begå mit livs dummeste fejl.
Now let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 24 hours, the group of forces east reported that the days for the settlement of Gulay-Polska are numbered, which means that in coming days we might receive additional updates on this matter. Most likely during the 5th or the 6th of June, we will receive report about complete control over the village. The Russians continue advancing, and the Russians, as you can see, intensify their FPV drone activity through the Orekhov agglomeration. So as you can see, the Russians are also tasked during the summer military campaign to establish complete control over the Orekhov agglomeration and to begin their preparation before the battle for the city of Zaporozhye. So the cities like Orekhov, Konstantinovka, Druzhkovka, Liman, Kupiansk, and the south and Kupiansk direction are the territories the Russians are tasked to take under complete control during the summer military campaign. Of course, let's wait and see whether the Russians are able to do this or not, and let's discuss the northern directions. According to information we have, the Russians improved their positions also through the northeastern part of the Kharkiv region. The Russians, as you can see, are moving towards the road between Petroivanovka and Kolodezny and Grigorovka. The Russians are attacking in the area of Odradnaya, Novovasilievka, Figilivka, and the changes are huge, as you can see, and most likely the Russians will continue advancing. As for this direction, the Russians are tasked first of all to take this road under complete control, and if Russians take this road under complete control, this which can start causing damage to the Ukraine's logistics further in the northeastern direction. Meanwhile, the Russians continue improving their positions along the river of Volcha in the area of the settlements of Karaichny and Volovka. We expect in coming days reports about the situation in Agrimovka. Probably within the next 4 or 5 days, the Russians will announce complete control over this territory, and during the same period of time, we expect additional changes on the ground along the river of Volcha in the most northeastern direction. The days for these villages also are numbered. Another important area is the Kazachia, Lopan, Zolochiv direction. These days, we start receiving lots of updates from this area. The Russians began offensive operation and are currently, according to different sources, first sabotage and reconnaissance groups of the armed force of the Russian Federation entered the settlement of Kazachia, Lopan, and the clashes have begun. Furthermore, the Ukrainians announced the evacuation of these territories. It seems that Ukrainians are planning to bring additional forces in this direction with the purpose to stabilize the front line and not allow the Russians to continue advancing further. As we can see, the Kharkiv direction is one of the most important directions for Russians for 2026, but everything that we can see through the 2026 are the preparation before probably a major battle for the city, which most likely will start in 2027. As for the Sumy direction, these days we also receive changes on the ground. The Russians continue advancing in the Krasnopolye direction, and the Russians continue advancing in the Velika Rybitsa direction. These days the Russians use artillery and aviation. Lots of strikes and attacks were recorded, carried out by Russians. The Russians are trying to soften the defenses of the armed forces of Ukraine before they enter this biggest Sumy forest from the east. And that's it for today.